Welcome back, everybody, to Hxro Labs Live with your host, RT, going by RandomTask555 on Twitter. Good to see you all here. Let's get live in the chat. Bear market classic, RL Tibble says. Yeah, Jesus. It's the pullback for today happening into the stream, which as a trader, as you guys know, if you're in the pit, I'm balls long on some perps. So it's an uncomfortable moment. I said this too, and I don't know if you guys watched the show last week, Thursday. Smitty Boop was on, and he's basically my trade partner. Like we get on DM voice calls like 2-3 times a day just to like go over our positions and everything. And we were chatting last night about Bitcoin and this whole dip. And I woke up this morning, anyways, and first person I text, I'm like, dude, look at that, we got the push. And I had a feeling it was like 6 a.m. Everything was like looking good. I wake up, check my phone. I'm like, I've not been sleeping lately. So I go back to sleep. But I was like, dude, the highs for the day might be in like, it's not a scalp long that I'm in. So whatever. But obviously, like having just spent all day yesterday awake, like during desk hours, just like watching the death and feeling the discomfort and really like some longs just kind of, anyways. Um, let's just get a bounce. Let's get a bounce. This is where we should bounce. We'll pull up the charts in a sec. We'll talk a bit about the levels. We are at a potential pivot in the market, so we have to keep our blinders off, eyes open. I like to generally stay with the weekly trend, which has been up. But if you spot early warning signs, whether that's like coming into a weekly level or some weakness on divergence in the daily, all that kind of stuff. You just want to have your blinders on so that you don't get caught with your pants down if that trend shifts or just takes a break or whatever. Market state's changing, right? We had a big range here for a while along the way, which is kind of how uptrends go. You're up, higher lows, higher highs. This was like a real weird anomaly. Like this just kind of, it was a higher low, but it like was a lower low within itself too. So this was a tricky spot. A lot of people got shaken up, myself included, stopped out here. Thankfully, managed to get long through the USDC craziness because I just thought this stablecoin FUD, like that's peak dip stuff. Anyways, really interesting price action on Bitcoin. And the question is, given that we've been seeing some really nice action on altcoins, there was like a week there really since the Shanghai upgrade where ETH BTC has been going crazy, alts have been recovering / mooning. And so you have talk of alt season. And I've got this outlined on my chart as a key level if we want to maintain that kind of uptrend in the ETH BTC pair, which typically bodes well for altcoins. And I think this has now become an extremely important level in that we had this kind of inverse or reversed Adam and Eve type, like U and then V type reversal. I don't usually care about the shapes of it. It's really just like a low, higher low, and then a breakout, or in this case, a sweep of the low and then breakout even stronger, as I've come to learn. So we're at this level, we're above this key level. We kind of touched it and started moving up. So it's not surprising to me at all today to start to see a dip in this. I mean, you just can't go straight up. Even if we're anticipating strong upside over a period of weeks, you're going to have your bumps in the road along the way. And so it's really about maintaining your bias if you haven't been invalidated, so you don't get shaken out on days like today, or instead of like yesterday, for example, was an interesting place. I kind of trained myself over time to recognize dips that I should be buying versus like ones to stay away from. And even then, like yesterday, there was moments where I was like, fuck, dude, like, is this really the dip I should be buying? Or is this one of those ones where like the lows just keep getting swept, and I just get poorer and poorer and poorer, and then I give up when the lows come in. It was not an easy day yesterday. I mean, it never really is. Trading is extremely challenging, even if you have a solid, well-vetted plan and all that. So yesterday was tricky. I actually made a mistake that paid off right at these lows. We'll get into that today a little bit. The importance of using stop losses. And then in this case, I actually forgot to set one. I had an alert set. And so I got that alert and I was like, fuck, I guess I'm not going to be long. Cause I was pretty sure we'd end up bouncing, at the very least, like bouncing before we go lower. Because, markets just don't go straight down and whatever. Anyways, let's just start off. We're going to talk about China today. in the context of an alt season, if there is more room for alts to go up along with ETH, BTC, and all that stuff, Bitcoin is back in this key range, which to me, originally I had marked on my Twitter as like, for alts to do well, you really want Bitcoin to trade in this range. Well, it dropped out of the range. And that was concerning for me regarding just the overall health of altcoins, because Bitcoin will drag everything down with it and it will drag everything up with it. Um, and so you want to have this kind of sweet spot where Bitcoin is in an uptrend, but then it chills. And typically, in that moment of chill, altcoins, ETH, everything else gets to go nuts. You get that liquidity rotation, right? So this was that zone. We're back in it now, but obviously there's a lot of volatility, and that is being expressed as uncertainty in altcoins, which are chopping quite violently today. Not necessarily making new lows. I mean, if this was my altcoins, I would have been stopped out across the board, but none of them really got stopped out except for two, and that's just because I kind of moved my stop losses up to break even in my discomfort, which was in retrospect a mistake. I'm sure we've all made that one before, and that's okay. So shit happens. So we're back in what I consider the key alt season, or whatever you want to say it, like the friendly window. And so it's just a matter of, does Bitcoin hold here, or was this just like a big fat short squeeze? And we are in for like a midterm reversal, because we can't forget, like, we have a big uptrend happening this year. I mean, really, since the start of the year, it's done nothing but trend up. But within that, you have periods of uncertainty, periods of drop, price go down. And so like right here, we were like making new highs, and then we had like a real painful puke out that lasted a couple of weeks. And that would test the resolve of anyone, especially guys like me who are trying to like get low against or get long against higher lows. And then it's just like, you're stopped out, you're stopped out, you're stopped out. Okay, your big stop loss hit, you're out of your spot. And then of course, pretty soon after that, if it's a big uptrend, strong uptrend, you're gonna see continuation. So do we have something like that, which like I can just grossly draw, even as something as aggressive as that, like before? I don't think so, for what it's worth. I don't think that this, the same kind of deceleration of trend here, like the slow meandering start to the year, I tend um, well, I don't know if it's an opinion, it's just kind of a fact. Trends tend to accelerate. So I think we are into an acceleration phase. I don't see our, big, long, drippy kind of whatever, but who knows? It's kind of like that washing machine cycle year. So all I can do is play the levels. Now we had a really nice level come in. I feel like I want to just hide some stuff here while we, this probably looks a little bit messy. So let's just hide this range for now. Can add it back later, because this throwback, and actually this is for the first time in a long time. Oftentimes, you end up looking left when you should look right in the market. So you're focused on altcoins, the dip comes in, you're getting long altcoins because it's clearly altcoin season, not Bitcoin season. And just last night during this dip, Bitcoin was really the only thing that fully corrected its move, cleaned up its chart. Altcoins, they're looking a little bit tired, the ones I'm looking at on the 4-hour, and they barely dipped at all. ETH did not sweep its range lows. We'll take a look at that in a sec. And meanwhile, you take this pivot low, which would be the last kind of major consolidation. So you take that low, you stretch it up to the high, and then, on like a higher time frame dip kind of situation, this is that pump chaser zone. This is like that 382 where I'd like to continue the trend. That's where I'm thinking about longs. It also happened to align really nicely with this wick high back here. So when I saw this all going down yesterday and into last night, I was kind of thinking like, damn, Bitcoin has corrected its move. Like, it's fully kind of set to go. Whereas if we go and look at ETH, I had a range drawn on there where I had some bids stacked at range lows, thinking, similar kind of thing, right? You take this pump chaser zone, drag it up, and then it's like, hey, here's where I'm looking to get long. And then of course that aligned really nicely. I'll get rid of this box. It's just to kind of highlight for myself where my bids are stacked. But like, here's sort of a range low where you'd expect like a sweep and then a spring. We didn't get that on ETH last night, which frankly made me uncomfortable. I was mentioning that in the pit. Like, I would have loved if this spring came in after ETH had kind of cleaned up and swept that liquidity. And then on top of that, you have what we looked at the start, which is, ETH BTC kind of needing to cool off a little bit. All that to say, for the first time in a long time, I managed to look left when I should be looking left. And I started focusing on trying to get long on Bitcoin because I just thought, you know what? This thing is at a cleaner level. It has already broken below that range that I was looking at. It's hit its 382. It's resting on the previous, high of the last consolidation. And so this became like a really interesting long for me, just in case as things recover, Bitcoin takes back over, which made sense to me. Obviously, at the time, it doesn't feel like it will because ETH is doing nothing but going up. But there's an ebb and flow in markets, right? So you have this big move, like it makes sense that we might have this while ETH or Bitcoin leads like a new leg or something, and then ETH comes back or something. So, um, anyways, I made the mistake of not setting my stop loss, which could have been fatal. Do not recommend. Um, but I was getting real cheeky up against these lows, which was in retrospect also like I should have been stopped out. So it wasn't really a great setup. As these things go, you tend to end with a sweep of something like my stop loss. But I was getting cheeky, and I set a bid in here, thinking like, here's that high time frame 382 or midterm, and then I was supposed to get stopped out right here, and I got that alert as I was like up with my lady watching a show. We tend to like try to unplug during the night from the computer, and I hang out with her. And so we were watching the show, and I got the alert, and I was like, fuck, whatever. There goes another one. And then I look back, an hour later, and I see my Bitcoin long open. I'm like, what the hell happened? Turns out I had set the alert for the stop loss, but not actually the stop loss. I think somewhere setting the order, I forgot to re-click into it or something. So that was kind of dumb. But so far it's aged really well. So it was one of those mistakes where I got bailed out, I should say. And again, in retrospect, a sweep of those lows would have been a much better long with some kind of like 29K type stop loss round number. So I woke up, the portfolio looked pretty happy, and then I just thought, damn, this feels like the high for the day, right? Where we had actually, this was, so put those ranges back on here. I'm just going to go through like the more like pressing price action, and then we're going to get into my whole like China narrative, because I think that's where I'm going to have my focus for the next foreseeable future, because there's a lot of altcoins out there, and there's a rotation game, right? You get ETH starting to send, so Arbitrum obviously very strong impulse out of its little wedge. And so kind of what's next? Where do I want to focus? And we'll get into China in a sec. But the more pressing price action, first of all, we just came into the new and more local pump chaser zone, the PCZ, places where in a strong moving market, I want to be thinking about waiting to get long. So you wake up this morning and you're like, oh man, Bitcoin's running. Like, okay, just swept range highs. It didn't sweep the highs. I still think we're going to go up there. That's my base case. In fact, I think we'll go much higher, but I'm not too worried about this pullback. I think, this 382 tag, I was watching the range EQ. I don't know how much you even want to look at this range anymore, because, we kind of left it a little, as Circa likes to call it, a deviation. So it turns into a deviation. It's really hard to spot them. You can kind of bet on it being a deviation. And that's, some people make a lot of money doing that, which is great. Anyways. So let's get a send on the stream. I was thinking about that before the stream. I was like, man, we're going into the stream after like 5 hours of down only since we woke up, if you're in North America. Let's see. So this is a level that I'd be watching if I wanted to get long and I hadn't been long. Like if I'm waiting and it's like, oh, you got a big move, just drag this tool up. If you guys haven't already watched it already, I do have a video on YouTube explaining how this tool works. It's not a perfect science, as I point out in the video, but every single time you use it to get long in the market, it's better than, top longing, where you just see like a moving, something's moving up and you're like, I'm just going to buy it. It's like, I want to buy something and I want to FOMO into it. At least I'm going to wait and try to get these 382s. You can see, high time frame. It worked. If you were just buying spot, all of this was FOMO. This was a sensible entry, 382. All of this was FOMO, sensible entry, 382. So it's a really simple tool. And at the very least, it gives me something better to do than like buying highs randomly. So I'd highly recommend taking a look at that. So let's see. I mean, the bottom line is Bitcoin's back in the friendly alt range, and it's just kind of wiling out today. So it needs to settle. Altcoins like stability in Bitcoin. And so as we were hanging out here and as we were hanging out here, things weren't so bad. Hanging out here, right? Everything's running. And then uncertainty, and they start to pull back. So if it can chill out in this range again, I think we see some continuation altcoins. I'll go over the ones that are particularly interesting to me right now. I know there's tons. And then, don't sleep on ETH. I think ultimately, we'll see what that ebb and flow looks like. What leads us out of this range? Is it Bitcoin? Is it ETH? It's probably net positive for the market if Bitcoin leads, because that's your biggest on-ramp to liquidity. And then we see more of what we just saw, which is just like nice rotations into ETH and altcoins afterwards. I still got my Bitcoin GAN fan, my big old GAN square. I can close these now. I've still got my big GAN square up. We're coming into the end of it after a couple of years. And while we could get real lazy here and just roll back over, we could do anything. But I really think that we're headed into another leg, and I think it'll probably be getting closer to the end of this year's trend, this year's move. The best part of this year that we'll get is heading into the best part of that pretty soon here, but who knows? So what I do know is we chilled for 21 days or so underneath this key GAN horizontal, which you can look left and say that's support resistance, but I would argue that it was formed based on this GAN, because at the time of this, it was just price discovery. There was like nothing up here, and price stopped it. And then on the way down, not directly, but like these wicks all kind of like didn't touch or get through this. And here it acted as support. And then here, as if by some miracle magic, it acted as resistance again. And then up through this arc, angle. So, my base case is still something to the effect of higher for now, and then like roll down through the summer down this arc, and then, how low that roll down goes. Is that where we come and fill in this inefficiency at like 25K? That might end that. It would be really freaking cool if we ride that arc down after getting, maybe even up to this horizontal at 41K. That would just make so much sense, given that this friggin' GAN square, I mean, it put a top in the entire cycle. So until it plays out, I got to at least act like I'm using it as a guide, because it's been a good one so far. Zooming in, that little fear part of my brain that's like over analysis paralysis, where I say to myself, what if you're wrong? What if you're a fucking idiot? I look at this and I just see something like short reload zone. Like if I wanted to be a bear, I would wait for some kind of bearish market structure like we got. And then my shorts I would take would be up in this short reload zone. And then I would be like praying for down. That's the bearish scenario. That's the bearish trade setup. So that range high really actually aligned almost perfectly with this 702 sweet spot, which you guys know I like to use as an entry or, for a long or short. So there's a bear case here. I'm just not buying it for now. I'm long and strong, really only adding yesterday. There was only 2 coins that I got out of based on like stop loss to break evens that didn't age well. Otherwise, it was just looking for things to add. And again, my ETH long did not fill. We did not get the range low sweeps. So, that's unfortunate. I think that would have given a lot more fuel and comfort for me as a TA guy if we had taken these lows and just kind of like grabbed all that liquidity. And as you can see, as a result of that, we're seeing kind of outsized strength on Bitcoin. It did grab that liquidity and then some, and is thus taken off a little harder today. ETH just looking like it still wants a taste of this. So I actually still have my bids working down here. I had canceled them this morning, and then as we were coming down, I was like, damn, during stream, if this just gets really nasty, I would, you actually want to personally, like I prefer it coming in hot and heavy. So everything's like super oversold when that comes in, instead of like, sneaking up on it and the RSIs, nothing's even oversold. And then it dunks, like I probably wouldn't want to be as long from that level as I am going to try to be. So anyways, that's my take on Bitcoin and ETH. ETH is just in a range. There's really nothing special. The last thing it did was sweep range highs. So technically the next thing it should do is sweep range lows. It has not done that yet. We didn't get it last night. Blah, blah, blah. Before we get into the China idea, let's get over the chat. I got so hot and heavy coming in. Turnaround Tuesday, ? Like we've had a lot of turnaround Tuesdays. It's kind of like this eerie thing in the market when you have the bull market where you just get this like um, nasty Monday opens, and like without fail, it just makes everyone panic, and it's like this feeling of like, oh man, we were wrong. The market's dumping. It's like it's a bear now. Like it's is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Protect gains. Get out. Get out. Get out. And then you spend the rest of the week just watching the trend continue, and you're like looking back at those wicks from the Monday, going like, oh man, I did it again. And that's been a big part of I think most people's lives in crypto at the start of their time here, where they don't kind of see that. And over time I've started to recognize it, and you just say like, we were talking about it in the pit yesterday, just like this dip on a Monday is super sus, especially because we just had an extremely bullish close on the Ethereum weekly. Similar to that Gann square on Bitcoin, I went to make one on ETH, and actually I pulled up this chart, and there was already an old Gann fan on here from that same point I made the Bitcoin one. It's not the full square, but it is the fan. And if you guys ever like to watch Messi streams, he used to apply this tool as well. He really liked it for just giving him sort of zones to trade within, and thinking about highs coming in at some of these arcs, stuff like that, lows coming in. So we actually had this really nice kind of like broadening wedge type thing, like just chilling between these. And then last week's weekly not only marked a break into sort of another big slice of pie, for what that's worth, but it also marked a break of the merge highs, not just a big, sweep and dunk like a lot of people might have been worried about, but also a close above. Um, and I tweeted about that on Sunday, and then somebody said, but doesn't that mean we have to pull back? And it kind of made me realize that like bull tweeting at the top of a weekly breakout, potentially gets people into trouble because they don't really know how to trade or something. And they see that and they say, oh man, that's really good, I'm going to go along. Well, obviously that didn't age well on Monday, right? I mean, for the sake of that weekly candle body high that I just marked, you don't see it here, but that is the weekly candle body high. There's some other levels here. I mean, ETH could come all the way back down to 1950 through something we talked about earlier in the stream. This kind of like, the same way we did this kind of lazy move up here. This could be the point where we get lazy again, and it would still be a bull market, like a bull trend. So just be weary of that. Be careful. Don't over risk in zones where I'm like, you know what, I'm long here, but my liquidation level isn't until 1700. So no matter what happens, I'm just going to hold, because that makes something like a dip to here extremely uncomfortable, where you almost set yourself up to be selling at the wrong time. I know it's tempting. Some people just look at the liquidation levels, just say yours is like somewhere down here. You're just asking to get taken. So I never played a liquidation, obviously, using stop losses. I play a lot tighter. I would recommend you just stay away from leverage altogether. Honestly, your life will probably be improved. I don't feel like I even hit anything I could resembles like edge or stride, so to speak, with trading and leverage for like maybe until like late last year. So that was like 5 years into trading, where I felt like, you know what? This isn't just a money pit for me. I can actually make a little more money here than just trading my spot bags. It's just crack, period. Like it's crack. When I'm in a big long and I close it, or I'm in a bunch of longs and they're running, like I'm high. And then once I've closed them all, I'm like depleted. It's very similar to like after a big night of partying and you're just like, ugh. So just be aware of that. That's a whole other conversation we can have someday. Let's get into China. I said I was going to check in on the chat. I'm all fired up today. It is turnaround twice Tuesdays. Yeah, turnaround overnight. The Asian session was very good to us. Stinky little dip day. Gary Gensler got torched in front of the committee. And I don't want to say torched by everyone, but there was definitely a handful of people in there. They were not happy with him. They were basically like, where the hell have you been, Gary? It's been 18 months. Go fuck yourself. And then Tom Emmer, as I expected, came in and just torched him. If you want to see the clip, go over to Twitter and watch this 5 minutes. I would love to just sit here and do like a live watch with you guys. But I feel like our time is better served. And I actually don't know if the sound will come through. Will the sound come through? Oh, we should watch it. But it's more of a topic for another day. But what I liked about his takes, outside of just the fact that, not a big fan of Gary Gensler, but he mentioned what I'm talking about, which is this China stuff, right? He said, do you notice that the CPP is like kind of like challenging our stance on crypto and trying to become the hub and kind of get an edge on this innovation sector? So it's a buzz, right? The US senator today in front of Congress, even he knows about my China thesis and the idea. Like, one thing, if you've been around crypto for long enough, you know there is no narrative in crypto that moves the market harder than Chinese policy. We've got, I think it was September 2017, massive dump across the board. China bans Bitcoin. We just seen it. There was nothing more bearish than like Chinese taking negative stance towards crypto. The US making some noise about crypto sometimes causes bearishness, but I think the market's like a little more blasé about it. It's like, man, we know you suck when it comes to crypto, so we're over it. And then, of course, in 2017, I guess we could look on this chart. I think Bybit was around back then. But in 2021, this was all right. Yeah, May 2021. This was all in the wake of China actually banning Bitcoin. They finally did it. They banned Bitcoin mining. I think Bitcoin trading might have already been banned by then, but they actually, everyone was like blasé about it. And then they're like, oh, wait, fuck, they actually did it this time. Miners are like literally leaving, steamrolling all their machines. So then, hash rate reaches new all-time highs and all that. So it wasn't too big a deal long term. But for them to now come out and say they are coming back online, they're coming back into the fold. Interesting article here from a couple of days ago. This news actually dropped originally. The first whisperings of this were in October 2022. So it's not surprising then that it kind of fell on deaf ears, because if you look at the charts from October 2022, they were down. Engagement was at an all-time low. And then right after that happened, FTX took over the headlines and we made the final puke out kind of capitulation. And so obviously in that, Hong Kong coming back into crypto doesn't excite too many people. Now, thus far, how much of this rally is being driven by anticipation of that? Who knows? There's no point speculating on that. But the fact that I even talked to Rob Levy yesterday, who is pretty in the know when it comes to this stuff. Even when he's heads down building, he's like talking to the right people and he's getting good info. He's a smart guy. And even he's like, oh, I haven't heard a word about China yet. Like, what the hell? Tell me. And I was like, that to me, you like to have your public indicators. He's by far and away not my public indicator. But I thought it was really interesting that even he was kind of like, wait, what? China's coming back? And so I don't think, for what it's worth, that it's priced in. I do think that as they're talking about June being a month of interest as far as like re-enabling Bitcoin and Ethereum trading, and going a little beyond that and saying that we're going to employ we're going to throw out some regulation and stuff. Now, I don't think regulation is the enemy. The way the SEC's gone about it, and he even said it today in his committee hearing, is that like Gensler has not made any new regulations specific to crypto. They're trying to like, first of all, I don't think they're trying to do anything helpful, but they're fitting crypto into like old laws and no clarity and all that stuff. So regulation in the States right now is a mess. It's basically absent. Coinbase has bent over backwards trying to be regulated, and so much so that I don't even want to sign up there. I started going through their onboarding process, and it was so friggin' annoying, and it was asking for like so much information, and I was just like, I don't even know what that form is. Like, they are so regulated, and yet they just got sued by the SEC or whatever, the CFTC. I don't know which one of those letters got them, right? So China's going a step beyond that. Top government officials such as Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee support, and the city is scheduled to hold 100 crypto-related conferences and lavish parties throughout April. One of those wrapped up just last weekend. Possibly why we saw the start of the moves that I was tracking on Twitter. ONT, NEO, both popping off. ONT is a weird one. For now, I mean, these are definitely the dino coins. So if you're looking at me like, oh, RT, those are so 2017, 2018, 20, like, I get it. I know. Okay. But ONT, like, I don't know. It feels like there's like one whale trading this coin, because it just goes on these insane pumps and then it takes back the entire move. And then it just did another one. This is like taking back the entire move. I feel like when I'm there in the order book, like I'm the only one there. So for now, I think it's taking back that entire move. For what it's worth, I have, some bids stacked in here, because if it is just going to be this kind of like uptrend, that's probably a place I'd like to be interested in along. But I did cut. I bought a little here and I had bids below, and then it just like took off like that night. I was like, oh shit. So I sold that because it just seemed tired and it's at resistance, and it was, small-ish position. So I was like, okay, cool trade. Let's just move on. But coming into this like 27 cent area, I'm keeping my eye on ONT because, and then like I could get all mid curve about it and be like, well, yeah, but like, are these old projects and aren't they dead and all? Doesn't matter. If Bitcoin and Ethereum trading are re-enabled in China and the regulators come in and they say, we want to be a Web3 innovation hub, Chinese projects are going to move. They just are. It's not investment advice. It's not a guarantee. I don't know what the hell is going to go on all over the rest of the world and with markets in general. But I think we know that as this gets closer to their date in June, at least I feel very strongly that this thing's going to have its time in the sun. And probably we get something like May filled with headlines leading up to, as this gets closer. And at any moment, and that's what they pointed out in this article, at any moment, they could just rug pull it and they could just turn it around and be like, actually, no, we've decided, screw that. And then you get, China ban Bitcoin again. So there's always risk in this stuff. But this for me is just like a lens through which to watch the altcoin market and then just focus on a narrative that seems promising. I'm just reading as I'm trying to talk. So that's why I just paused weirdly there. But, OKX, Bybit, Huobi, they're all applying for licenses. Like, China's opening its doors, period. So tell me China coins aren't going to stand out at some point through the rotation in altcoins. And then that all ties back to like, if we continue to see what we've just been seeing in altcoins, it's very possible. I don't think it's probable, but I think it's possible. We swept the lows at the ETH merge. Thought we were going to see a flippening. People started talking about the flippening. Well, no, Bitcoin's been taking back dominance for the last 8 months. And then we came up to this local resistance. I actually had a higher resistance on this chart for the longest time. But then I realized, we've really just formed a new one. I should really get with the times, RT, come on. And that really gives us like a bit tighter of a consolidation range that's formed here. So if Bitcoin dominance rolls down, ETH BTC, does its pullback thing into here. I put this 280, 236. I never trade that level, but I threw it on there today to see if that's where we had stopped earlier. We hadn't. We're at it now, but it's not really an important level to me. I like that this level that I've identified here, this key support resistance, is also kind of aligning with a 382. So it may be the case that ETH BTC trades as low as that. Of course, if it trades below this level, that does not invalidate this breakout the way that I trade. It can get as painful as a full like reload zone. I mean, would you expect anything different from this chart? This thing hasn't really moved in 2 years, if you look at it. So it could be a painful road up as far as like trying to be super long one part of the market, whether that's altcoins or Bitcoin or ETH. These things have been yo-yoing back and forth with no clear winner for 2 years. So I guess the bull bear case, the bearish bullish case, is that this dip goes longer and further than we expected. And I think at this point, the invalidation is really far away for like the higher time frame Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin thing. And I would go and make the unpopular opinion that the deeper this dip goes, as long as it doesn't go, the deeper and longer this takes, if that's Bitcoin running into the high heavens, 42 Bitcoin by the end of May kind of thing, that's actually great news for alts. Like that's just more fuel for the altcoins. But who knows how far that dip's going to go. It's far from me calling for it as much as just this is the first level I'm interested in. This is the pump chaser zone. And then, of course, this is the reload zone. All of those are bullish possible scenarios that start with a bit of pain for alts versus Bitcoin. But, this thing looks kind of cooked for now. Coming into a big level at like 0.68, 0.675. I think those are the key levels. And then if it's a really strong trend, you really don't want to see it go much further than that. So let's see how it goes. So in the scenario where altcoins are doing well, I've got a short list here that I'm interested in. ONT, VET, and NEO are like the dinos on this chart. VET looks really good. I think all of them are a little out of like optimal entry zones, but I guess it depends. Depends on your time frame. Like if I had a cousin come into crypto and says like, I've got a certain amount that I'd like to deploy. First of all, I tell them I don't want to tell you because I hate giving that kind of suggestion to people. But in an investment type level, there's like highs in markets and there's lows in markets. Is arguably like bottom range for the entire market. So if you're a high time frame trader or a high time frame investor where it's like 2 years, I think most of these are investable. If you don't give a shit what happens between now and like late 2025. But on a trade level, I'm really tight on VET. I picked it up. I forget how I drew it at the time. I think it was probably off this level. Yeah. So I actually just picked it up yesterday in this local pump chaser zone and just like loaded through here, and now stop loss up to this. So it's pretty tight. It's pretty aggressive. And the reason I'm doing that is because, like I just pointed out with ETH, Bitcoin, there's a lot of unknowables. And so I'd like to just keep risk at a minimum. And if we break below here, then, maybe I do get a proper FU kind of rollover. And then there's going to be a new setup that emerges. I mean, how many times have we seen this, right? Where you're like, hey, I'm so bullish on this thing. And then it does this and then it goes. So there could be a new setup emerging down here. And I'd love to get stopped out as quick as possible if I'm wrong on my timing. So I'm pretty tight on VET. And that's kind of the theme for all of these. VET, I don't have any QTIM yet. You'll notice it looks very similar. A lot of these coins that we're going to look at today look very similar. ONT is kind of the outlier with volume. And of course, I'm looking at Bybit perps. So the volume is definitely much more reliable to look at on something like Binance spot pairs. But my short list is the perps because they have some unique levels that I need to know about because that's where I'm trading. But NEO's an interesting one, maybe better viewed on the Trendmaster. This is where I started looking at this stuff. APT, I'm long on. We'll get into that later. That one's been torturing me through this chop. But Trendmaster, just for you, those of you who don't know, it's just an indicator. I like to pull it out during trending markets because, as you know, I like to get long on dips. So it's like, ooh, reload zone, and then I go. But if there's a breakout in the market and I'm not long already and I want to be a part of it and I think there's a strong uptrend, I need a tool that frames the risk such that I can use it as a setup and get long. And the Trendmaster does that for me. Not here to sell it. I don't have an affiliate link. I don't even think it's for sale anymore. I'm pretty sure the team just kind of closed down shop and they just said, we're just going to leave the Discord and the bots running. But like, we're like moving on with our lives. Maybe they have kids or some shit. I don't know. But basically the way it works is you get green candles that signal a potential breakout. And then the signal comes when a white candle following, like the wick, just has to exceed the wick high. Technically, that's a buy stop order you would use, and then risk to the bottom of the breakout candle. And then the cool thing is you just kind of like ride it until these like green lines are like Williams fractals. This is a 12-hour. It's really not something I would use below the daily time frame, but these set like a trailing stop for you. So in this case, it got stopped out before the big move. So I don't actually trade the way that the Trendmaster says to trade. I just use it to spot breakouts. Like when during all of this shit did the move up become significant? There was no signal here, didn't exceed the green. There was a signal here. It actually still never got stopped out. Technically, this signal has been on since here. So that's interesting. There was a potential reversal here, didn't break the wick low, so didn't get a signal. But the next buy signal came in just the other day, right here. So I got long NEO and ONT and a couple others last weekend. And then weirdly enough, on like a Saturday night, NEO and ONT just went like, I think ONT like 30%, NEO just like 12 or 15, but it was a significant move to me to signal like the idea is there, that there is life and energy in some of these old Chinese dino coins. And I should really look into NEOs like day to day now, but I know from like 2020 post last bear market, they had a treasury of like 200, $300 million. I mean, they did a monster ICO or I don't actually know if they did a huge ICO or just like sold a bunch during the bull, but whatever it was, like NEO has a huge treasury. And I still remember the ant shares to NEO 350X or whatever it was pivot where like, the energy behind this, like, oh, Chinese Ethereum, like smart cities in China will be built on the backbone technology of NEO. I don't know how much bullshit that is, but I feel like that kind of silliness could come back into the market. And I'd be curious to hear from you guys in the chat on some of these, like maybe some new China coins I know CFX has had an interesting year. I actually wanted to short it back here, and then the market looked so fucking good when it got up into my short reload zone that I canceled my short. So, and that sucks because if you look at it on a high enough time frame, it just looked like it had sort of its whole Elliott wave cycle, which can happen where you get like some detachment in the market. So like, a coin can just have its own cycle, and then you get this kind of like ABC. And so I was actually thinking like, man, this thing could trend down even if we don't break down across the board. So this was going to be my short proxy to just like hedge out some exposure in the market while we have fun elsewhere. And since then, I've just butchered up the chart with high time frame supports. And somebody yesterday mentioned this wedge, so I put it on there for them. I don't know how much weight I would put on this. I'm not really a diags guy. Shout out Circa. I make diagonals for him. He needs them in his life, and I intend to be the provider. So if you're watching, buddy, I got your back. Anyways, whatever this diagonal was, pretty messy, not really real. But whatever it was, it has broken. I think this is probably the better way to draw it. That was a really quick job I did yesterday. But to lose it and then retest it and whatever. So anyways, I think CFX is cooked, but this is probably one of the better newer ones. So that's going to be a really interesting reload zone. Nervos Network, I know, seems to get some nods from some people that I like that are smart. That thing's been just taking its sweet time, but the 4-hour W came in, so I got long, added a little bit on the retest. It's just taking its sweet time. I don't think I need to trade this thing into like new all-time highs. I'm really into like May, June. I'm just looking for something like this would be kind of cool. That would be enough for me. And then of course keeping moonbags in case we do get up into like chaos levels or fib extension levels. Those are the sweet take profits, but I would be at least 50% closed during all of these short reload zones with stop losses to break even kind of thing, or even in a little bit of profit, because it is 2023. It's a washing machine cycle year. I don't know that, especially in altcoins, I don't know that we need to go into like a full blown FU sky fuck rally. So yeah, DOT. Somebody mentioned DOT. Somebody on, Captain Rational popped into my Twitter mentions today when I posted about this stream. He mentioned the BSN, so the blockchain based service network. Basically, he says it's like, the biggest consortium of blockchain stuff out in the East. So keeping an eye on names like this. These are obviously much larger cap names. Nothing wrong with that. Vet and Filecoin, some other big ones I've been thinking about. Near looks really good. It's not on my list. I should look at it. I think I added it to my list today, actually. No, I didn't add it to this list. I added it to yeah, let's take a look at Near. The perps might be too new. No, they've been around. Wow. So zooming in, Near's done nothing but go down for, as things did. But look at the buy volume coming in at the lows. So pretty standard across the board for coins that aren't dead. There's just buyers are stepping in. The bottom is being put into the altcoin market. And, just as a heads up though, like these bottoming phases can take a long time. That's why I'm really happy with like short reload zone type take profits or like tight resistance take profits, because I don't expect these to just go, straight back up. It's very possible you just get this kind of thing for like, it can last a long time. It can last forever. And the best part is when it lasts, the longer it lasts, the longer the consolidation, usually the bigger the move after. So if this was the bottom and that's all it's gotten, do we really expect the big FU 100x type rallies to come? Probably not just yet. Unless you're a PEPE coin. It's up 147,000%. I got it here. I looked at it today. Not a buy. I'm going on the record and saying this is not a buy for anything like what I would trade, but it did have a really cool rally. So I could see why people are talking about it. 176,000 from the exact launch. Whoever got first block on this. What is that like? Is that 1700x? I never know how to convert percentages into X's. There's like 1 0 removed or something. I don't know, but it's crazy. I think yesterday somebody on Twitter told me to, they're like, oh man, get in on this PEPE coin. So that must have been somewhere through this. So I'm a sucker because I think it's up 3x with decent liquidity. but I'll sit in my mid curve on these weird coins and cope, and that's okay. Yeah. Vibe says he's tripping over how crazy Gary looked today, enjoying the markets, trying not to overtrade it. Yep, I agree. That's really been bullish Clayton. Okay, cool. Gaming narratives in South Korea. So I was like, oh, spell breaking out. Wow. It's a lot happening, guys. It's a ton of energy in the market right now. So yeah, yeah, that just got me scattered. I'm like, oh no, where do we look? Where do we look? Everything looks good. What we really want to see, my Bitcoin long would enjoy Bitcoin going higher, but really what we want to see collectively, because let's be honest, we're all altcoin bros at heart. It's not really a Bitcoin maxi stream. Is just all we just want to see Bitcoin chill out. So I can get rid of some old lines here. We don't want to put these old ranges into the ether right now. We're focused on the current range, and with a deviation. So Bitcoin can just chill. That's all it has to do. Not nuke, not moon, and then all of these Bitcoin pairs are going to start running. Speaking of Bitcoin pairs, for better or worse, my largest altcoin long right now is on APT. Not necessarily because I think it's the best one, but it had a really strong Trendmaster move. So I'll just start there. So I saw it on the daily Trendmaster. Obviously, shiny new toy, L1 kind of thing. It did a very similar launch to like AVAX and DOT, where it kind of came out and was super boring for a while and then just went absolutely parabolic. And since that move, it has done nothing for the better part of, since the highs, it's been like 82 days, like almost 3 months. So I'm keeping an eye on it and wanting to be a part of what might be another explosive leg. And so you get out something like a palm chaser zone. You say, okay, it's just chilling in this like high time frame zone. And then of course the Trendmaster, which did not fire here. These green candles don't mean anything if the next candle doesn't exceed. Actually, it looks like it did fire here. So there was one fake out. Anyways, it fired again the other day. So, getting into the grease here, trying to buy this dip, rising volume, all that stuff. And then, of course, you can look at it versus Bitcoin, and it's in the zone. Probably don't want to do that on the Trendmaster. Heiken-Ashi, not really fun to look at, other than so like this kind of thing. It's in a reload zone. So not like it's been trending up, but this is where reversals tend to happen. This is where I like to be long on things. So if there was an alt season, if there was like altcoins taking back dominance versus Bitcoin, this is probably an area on their chart you'd expect to see that start to happen. Bulls stepping in. So I like APT. I'm not convinced that it's the best one to be in, but I do think it's pretty good luck, or a pretty good chance that it's going to have like an explosive move from here. From here, but like around, God, what am I trying to say? I don't know where it's going to happen from. I just think it's going to happen. And the best part is, the reason I have this ridiculous take profit on here is because that's just like your standard fib extension. So from a really high time frame perspective, you have a huge move and then you kind of come down and it's like, oh, fib extension, that's your pie in the sky, like next target. And if we just took something like this and made like a quick and dirty chaos, I feel like it's going to be nearby. Yeah, it's right up there too. So that's kind of like a pretty sweet move. I mean, that'd be pretty sweet. So that's the long I'm in now. It's probably oversized for me as far as like, be nice to just have a little spot bag and not really care. But I've been watching it for a few days and it's been torturous because it's formed this really nice 12-hour level that I highlighted yesterday on Twitter. I think I have it here, where it was just like a candle body close and then flipped support, kind of chopped here, support, resistance, support, resistance, support. Like it's a strong level. And so I don't want to see it go below 11.99. Let's just put it that way. If it goes below 11.99, I have to retreat. And the downside of that is it doesn't actually invalidate the daily Trendmaster thing. So, but anything into like this, and then it's like, hey, maybe I can find another way to get long. But for now, I'm long on it. And then this morning, actually, a new setup came in on it, which is probably the one in retrospect I could have waited for. I basically have like been long through this. I think since back here. I don't know. I don't remember when, but it's been a sweaty couple of days just watching it. Like, initially my my stop loss was here, then I moved it to 11.99 because I like friendly round number. And then after this came in yesterday, I decided I didn't want to see it go back there, so I moved it up to this low again. And then overnight, I left it down to 11.99. Thankfully, I was like, oh shit. So it's just been a bit of management going on, but more locally, what I found was interesting is that we just had like a higher high now on the 4 hour. So, we had that, and then it's just been lower highs, higher lows, like consolidating. And then today we got that higher high. So this dip, entirely new setup locally with that stop, becomes like a new setup to think about. And ironically enough, it's like right at my entry right now. So in a way I could have been scalping it, but you can never get it perfect. So whatever. So we'll see. We'll see about this one. It's a bit emotional for me now, but I'm leaving my stop loss at 11 until it breaks out of this consolidation or shits on my head. That's the end of that. Yeah, somebody says APT is not the best. Yeah, I just think especially with like ETH getting some strength, and then you see AVAX moving hard and then Solana moving hard. I'm like, oh, as soon as somebody decides that L1s are a thing, and then of course we're just seeing some internal strength here on things like the Trendmaster, the breakout volume here, chilling out here, letting everyone forget about it. So I think it's like breakout imminent, or I just get nuked, and I'm happy to shit or get off the pot with this one. But let's get back to the list. CKB Nervos, we talked about Doge. Actually, funny enough, shout out to Shane if you ever watch his stream. He popped into the chat that we had in the pit the other day. Where was it? Oh God, I don't know. I think it was like here. And it was perfect timing. He jumped into the pit when we were just chilling. Oh, I know where it was. It was here. So I was sitting here, low time frame trading, and we had that dip day last week. And this is like my buddy who's like a tier OG, and he's like a Doge guy, and he just comes in the pit and he's trolling. He's like, "God, buy Doge, and it was right here. And he's the one who told me through 2018, 2019, 2020, like just buy Doge. He's a casually. He's like, just buy Doge. It's the thing that's like on the bottom. It always pumps. Just buy it. Anyway, so when he popped in and said that, and then I saw the level, I was like, you know what? This is a sign. So I picked up some Doge. That's why it's on my short list. So I'm long from there. Basically, stop loss to break even now. We'll see how far that goes. Tree of Alpha, according to Jedi last voice chat we had, really likes it. So that's always cool. I don't have data on how he does in the market with Twitter calls, but seems like a smart guy. Persons, I don't know. Tree of Alpha sounds like a group, but maybe not. Filecoin, higher cap on this list, probably one of the better, like newer ones as far as like tech goes and cloud storage. Apparently a big thing in China, or I don't know. It's on our list of Chinese coins. It's actually at the top of our list. So I've got some longs there. Again, looking to get filled here, and then zooming out, why not have some pie in the sky targets for like the remainder? That's kind of how I'm trading this, like get in, get out, because it's a washing machine up down cycle. But then also save a little and see if we can catch some chaos into the go live in China kind of thing later in June. Now, probably my favorite thing about that narrative is that it gives us a timeline. It's like mainnet launch, right? Remember classic like mainnet launch pumps? I don't know if they still happen, but like you'd have some projects that's like, yeah, we're launching our mainnet soon, and then like price would rally, and then of course once mainnet goes live, there's not actually a ton of demand there for the token that's organic, in the sense of like needing it for gas or whatever. So sell the news. If that ends up being the case in China, not only does that mean we get to rally through May, but it also gives a pretty clear cut window for when to be thinking about getting out of the trade, which is my favorite thing. Trades that give you time windows make the life so much easier, because if there's like a dip 2 weeks, 3 weeks before said event, you can be pretty confident that it's a dip for buying versus like on the day um, that the news goes live. It's probably not actually bullish on those days for Chinese coins. It's just going to be speculators in the market, right? IOST, little project, been around for a while, not on these perps, but that thing's looking decent. You notice how they all, just went to scratch my neck and I just about deep throated this mic. Jesus. um, do you notice how all these look the same? Yeah. So it's probably like pretty correlated in the sense of like, is there any point in being long on just all of them? I don't know. I'm long on a bunch of them. I think they all move together to some extent. It's just about like each day a different one pops. FLM went bananas. This looks like a pump and dump group, so just be weary. I don't think this means this is better than the rest. This looks a lot like a pump and dump group. In fact, I would bet money that was some kind of group saying like, "Whoa, we're gonna pump FLM. Everyone buy, buy, buy." And then the guys who tell everyone to buy, they sell it. Pretty illegal, pretty stupid, pretty annoying. Either that or you're betting that was like some fat fingered whale that just doesn't know how to trade, which is also possible. But definitely looks, the more you zoom in, the more it looks like a pump and dump, which is not great because these things take a long time to clean up. When you have this kind of pump and dump, you tend to just end up with a salty group of holders, and it takes a little while to. So I'm not interested in flamingo finance, but Litton Tree is interesting to me. Not at these levels. I'm long on it already. I don't like it up against this resistance, probably with some dying volume and momentum. So here's the thing. There's really two ways to do this. Being long already from a lower level, obviously, or waiting for my current longs to get stopped out, because there is still 6 weeks until this kind of thing comes. And then, in a beautiful world, there's a world where, like, again, because all of these look the same, there's a world where a lot of them just like get boring and then go. So that's going to be like another setup that I'm looking at. But we are getting a lot of the same kind of dying momentum, dying volume on this final push up. So for how excited I am on altcoins and particularly focusing on the ones in China, I am not going to sit here and say like they have to go up from here. I'd actually obviously prefer that because I'm already long, but beyond that, I'd feel much more comfortable. And then you can obviously take a bit more size if you get into something like a more midterm pump chaser zone, which is down here. This is probably actually like the first kind of setup thing I'd be taking. So that actually seems probable at this point, now that I look at it. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. This idea that like you can be excited about some narrative. But if you're playing the rotation game, it's important not to get in too early, or certainly not like FOMO in. And objectively speaking, as excited as I am for this narrative, a lot of these coins, Filecoin too, I believe, just showing weakness on the 4 hour. So just keep that in mind. Bearish, bearish, bearish volume and momentum. And so they may not be ready, even if a couple of them are popping off. So super excited on this narrative. I think that there's some time to get into it. They can either run, which is why I'm already long, or they can stop out what is ultimately some pretty tight setups that I've got, and then give me like a little bit more of a more of a meandering fill. Yeah, somebody mentioned that FLM does that stuff all the time. So yeah, APT does look primed. Oh, I'm looking at it on the left side of my screen on my perps account. It's just like, it's one that I've been watching closely for better or worse. Let's see, what is that? The hourly? We got a green. I say again, we've got a green. Look, this is one of those ones, right? It's like kind of it. I regret looking at it as much as I have because, first of all, it's done nothing. It's been like, thankfully didn't quite stop me out. It hasn't really broken out. And then like the setup, www.breakout.dip.go, only just started like yesterday. So I was actually tempted to add here, just saying like, hey, this is a separate setup. I'm going to take separate size on it, but it gets pretty aggressive. And I don't need all that in my life right now. I think my stress levels yesterday, even though you have your setups and all this stuff, it's still stressful. It's still uncomfortable to be in these like deep dip days when you're already long and then just looking to add to the longs, all the while wondering if you're wrong, which I always entertain the possibility of. Anyways, so didn't add to APT today, but I am. It's my largest position after Bitcoin. So that's my whole personal story. Where's my story? I still think this is in play. I don't think the front of this circle is in play. This is an arbitrarily sized circle. The exact intersection is May 8th. It could come in like 2019. It came in like 2 weeks late, but it was like still in the circle. So I still think this is in play. It doesn't matter to me if it doesn't play out. I'm not going to lose my house. I think we'll get to that level at some point this year. For what it's worth, like who cares? You don't know. So what's the point of? But like, yeah, however this looks, I mean, if there's an acceleration, especially again, China legalizing crypto trading is actually the most bullish for Ethereum and Bitcoin. So it is also possible that all these Chinese alts don't matter, or they're like late cycle type pumps, like they're maybe the last thing to go in like a month. Going back into those, like where you get, like maybe this was the local high for file. I noticed it this morning, like it just came in, kind of printed an M, tested the short reload zone. Like it's very possible that this was the, what do you call it, test pump, where it's just showing some strength in the market. It's really hard to trade this right now. I don't love the long setups from here. I hate to say it. I'd love to just say like they're definitely going to moon, let's everybody get in, but I just don't. Is this an accelerating trend, or is that just a short time frame reversal and we come visit this first reload zone? I don't know. So how the fuck do you want to trade this shit? It's up to you. I'm already in from these kinds of retest levels, so just be aware of that. That's why like content creators and influencers, people on Twitter, like it's really hard to like copy trade. You just shouldn't do it. But take the idea, if you like it, do some research, decide what you think China legalizing cryptocurrency or regulating cryptocurrency means, and how that would reflect in a narrative-driven market. I think it would reflect positively, but yeah, full stack creative. He said test pump. Anyways, okay, I'm a bit distracted. I'm hungry. Anyone hungry? Y'all want some lunch? Let's go get some lunch. So keeping an eye on this, I just like Gann. I like that if his 50-50 comes even close to hitting again, that'd be super cool. It'd be a lot of fun. Obviously, Bitcoin at 42K would be fun for most people, except for the bears. But it'd be really weird to top out here. I don't expect it. It'd be super strange. In fact, from this perspective, having just flipped this level to come in and test it and then bounce $1,400 in under 12 hours is pretty indicative of how the market's feeling about Bitcoin right now. Is it not? And can we expect to see this kind of like high when we haven't even taken out, no doubt, some large pool of liquidity that's hiding over here? Seems improbable, doesn't it? So I'm not worried about my Bitcoin long. I am concerned with my APT long. No, but I am concerned with my China like short list. I think very possible that these could just pop and go nuts because there's some headline out of China. I think it's very possible that they could just meander down for a few weeks while everything else, like just chills out for a bit. Bitcoin maybe goes on a rally, whatever. And then that narrative kicks in. It's really hard to time it. So I'm trying my best to stay patient with new entries, stay strong with current entries, but stay focused on this narrative because I just don't see, we saw what Arbitrum did, narrative driven trading, right? Like the ETH upgrade, and then look at Arbitrum, and it's not come back for anybody. Didn't come back for me here. And didn't come back for me here. And didn't come back for me yet here. I'm not bidding it anymore. But when the narratives take over, whoo, buddy. So I'd be shocked if everything Chinese doesn't just get a little nod here during May sometime. If, and here's the big if the market, like if it's like still altcoin friendly. So this is less about like, I think there will be an alt season and I think these are the ones that'll go. And it's more like, if alts are running crazy, this is the sector I want to be in. Let's put it that way. There we go. Completed. We're getting close to the top of the hour, but let's hit up the chat. If there's anybody in the chat who has questions. Clayton. I never looked at Clayton. Let's go look at Clayton. Where is it listed? Is it on one of these big fancy exchanges? Oh, it is. Listed on the Chinese one. Go figure. Don't know a thing about it, but let's see what the chart says. Well, somebody stepped in and put a bottom in it here. That we can see by the volume. That's just whales putting in some big volume. Maybe there was a news-driven announcement. Who knows? Then we got a reload zone, which is a great place to be thinking about risking against lows. That's come and gone through December. That's when the whole market bottomed. And really, it's just been trending up this year. So this is a good looking chart, actually. I don't think... Oh, they do have a perp on Bybit. Yeah. Let's add it to the list. Sweet. Thank you for the idea, guys. This is great. This is great. So I'll dig into this a little bit, see if I can find an excuse to be long against a level that's reasonable invalidation of length. Probably this kind of thing. So it's kind of already in the zone. But I'm pretty friggin' long on China coins. I think I would take this one either around here. It's a daily chart too. So, you know me, I'd get into the grease here, zoom into some time frames, probably try to get this 618, 702. Try to wait for the sweep of this lows, get long there, risk against that kind of thing. I don't know. But Clayton looks good. Probably want to do a little research too. I don't know anything about it. But if Vibes in the chat says bullish Clayton, I got to assume that he's onto something. So I'm going to take a look at that one. So Clayton's on my list now. Thank you for that heads up. Let's go see Spell. Somebody said Spell's moving. I think it gets delisted from Binance like tomorrow. So be weary of that. I don't see why that wouldn't be priced in to some extent because it's been announced, but I think that actually happens tomorrow. I'm still a fan of Spell. I've actually got some staked, so I don't mind. I don't mind if this thing wants to go. I don't have a setup on it yet, although it is flagging pretty profusely following a little daily W. So you have this kind of thing where you're coming down and then you're going up and then you're going not quite as low, higher high. And call me crazy, but I think that's the pump chase zone right there. Yep, it is. So wouldn't be shocked from a purely TA perspective to see Spell get more up from here than down. But let's just let that one play for a bit. It's at just under a cent, 78th of a penny. Or is that a 7800th of a penny? I don't know. Either way, it's at 0.00078. But this thing, yeah, for all intents and purposes, it looks good. Does it have a narrative, decentralized stablecoin? Like, I don't know, how Chinese is it? That's basically what I'm asking now when people tell me they like a certain altcoin, because I'm just trying to stay focused on a certain narrative for better or worse. I just don't see any chance that doesn't draw attention to, the market. As we get closer to the day, you're probably going to see a lot more headlines, a lot more speculators. And I'd like to say that I was there ahead of them so I can sell to them in June or late May or mid-May, whenever the fuck that is. That's my thesis, and I'm sticking to it. Spell TVL growing a lot. That's good to know. Keep sliding down in my chair if you guys wonder why I do this like every 5 minutes. DFK subnet thriving. Nice with the GLP product. Dope. Super long Jewel. Okay. Jewel. I don't know how good this chart's going to be. TradingView is weird with on-chain stuff. Some of their stuff's really good. It's okay. Yeah. Not a bad place to be bullish on something if, like a lot of people like to be bullish on stuff up here. They look at this chart, they say, look, it's dead. And this is where I like to buy, but you know me. much prefer to bet on the reversal rather than wait for like 2 months of uptrend before getting excited about stuff. So this chart looks pretty good at a quick glance. PEPE, on the other hand, the hottest topic right now on Twitter, probably going to make some very rich people. Not a place where I want to become exit liquidity. And as your resident mid-curve co-pour, I will just point out that it still could go up. I don't know. 71 million market cap. Is it the next SHIB? I won't be buying to find out. Someone will, excuse me. Let's have a chat about sleep. It's really important to get your sleep, kids. On Saturday night, I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning to go over all my positions because I had a lot of them. And frankly, it was a little irresponsible that I didn't have a spreadsheet that had my global risk, and like it's important to audit things too. Like last night I said I didn't have a stop loss on my Bitcoin. That's very bad when you're trading on leverage. Like you have to have your risk managed, right? So I made that mistake most likely because of lack of sleep. 4 hours of sleep on Saturday night. And I get this from my Fitbit. Like I'll wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, how's my sleep? It's like, oh, 4 hours, not that great. Then 4 hours the next night. I don't know how. I thought I got to better sleep then. And then 5 hours. And like I'm averaging like 5.5 hours now for like a week and a half. Not ideal. So I'm yawning. I'm tired. I have been taking some naps. All I'm going to say is like, make sure you get your sleep, guys, because you're going to need it. There's a lot of big mistakes that get made when people are tired. I am proof of that. And in this one particular case, it worked out to be a happy accident because I would have just got stopped and now, Bitcoin's up $1,300. But it's not a mistake I'd like to make again. And, life's just better when you're well rested. So I would end with don't get too caught up staring at charts. Find levels, hunt levels. Ideally, like Mondays, like yesterday, are days where you're just getting a bunch of fill alerts, not a bunch of stop loss alerts. Getting yourself into position, and the reason it's so hard to do that, for example, all those China altcoins that I just posted, the reason, like they could run right now, and then under that understanding, I want to be long already. They could also just roll over for like a week or two and then run. And on the daily, it'll look like nothing. And it'll be like, hey, look, China coins ran. So for fear of missing out, you might be tempted to go and buy them at their local highs. And then on that dip day, you have no choice but to get stopped out or nuke yourself. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is like having the confidence to lay a bid in a good level, and then also having the sort of like, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. Long term, that's the most profitable approach to trading that I can think of. Like this kind of idea that any one coin in any one setup, you don't actually have to be in it. And if you take that approach, you tend to let the market come to you more often instead of chasing it around all the time. And then on dump days, which inevitably come, in an uptrend, you get the most violent dumps. Downtrend, okay, maybe downtrend, you get the most violent dumps. But in an uptrend, you get these insane days like Monday, yesterday, and I think Tuesday the week before, where there's just like this 4-hour candle on every single chart, just boo. And then, of course, you start to think, is this the end? Was I wrong? I'm already long. I'm underwater. It's extremely hard to trade that way. Meanwhile, if you do it the other way, you're being patient, you're finding levels, you're setting bids. And if, it took off without me, okay, follow it up, find new levels, find new bids. But at some point on those days, it's fucking awesome, dude, when you just get like a symphony of alerts from TradingView that all your positions are filled. The nicest part about that is that you usually don't spend much time underwater. In pip perfect scenarios where it's just like dips in and fills you, and then anyways, it goes without saying that that's ideal. It's a lot harder to do it than it is to talk about it, but that's why things like reload zones, things like pump chaser zones, courses like TRI are so important for traders that really want to do well, because they teach you to do things like that instead of getting caught up in emotion and FOMO and selling Mondays, buying back Tuesdays, and all that stuff. So I'm going to go have a nap. No, I don't actually have time. I have a meeting, but I do have to run. So thanks for joining the stream today, guys. I hope you understand my general Chinese thesis. I don't think there's any chance we're going to get to June without more headlines. And I don't think that there's any chance that the full weight of China being back in crypto is fully priced in. I think that's extremely unlikely. So I'm very excited to see what it'll do, both to Bitcoin, ETH, and a whole bunch of my old Dino Chinese coins and some new ones. Other than that, if a new rotation emerges, like on-chain perps or something else, what's another one, like ARB season we just kind of had, there's going to be other narratives, and I'm not opposed to pivoting, but I will not miss this Chinese rally. I just think I would be like the classic case of like, oh man, I saw that coming. I asked my guys to write a report. They wrote one. We published it. I did all this stuff, and then it happened, and I wasn't on it. So I'm staying focused and in my lane and moisturized, et cetera, et cetera. From now until next time, guys, we're going to be back with the pit on Thursday. If you haven't already, like the video, sub to the video channel, all that stuff, and take a nap if you have time, because God knows I need one. Have a wonderful day, and whatever you do from now until next time, always play from a position of strength. Take care.